guys that are highly educated and could talk, you know what I mean? It's just like enough of this.
Throw Tucker for Prez.
Well, imagine that. He'd win in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
Well, let's talk about Tucker. What happened to him?
Well, let's introduce
go ahead.
Dave first. Dave Hunter from the Drive magazine. Thanks for coming. And also a realtor. You entered that field, a year ago?
Yeah, just had my first
awesome.
my first
Congrats
ever.
on that.
Thank you. It's been interesting.
Yeah?
It was great out of the gate.
What a time to come into real estate.
Yeah, I mean it was like I said, it was interesting to come into it like when I did, and the market has kind of pivoted, obviously, as you know.
But what a big learning experience that has been.
It was quick. Yeah, it was quick, and you see both sides of the spectrum now, right?
Exactly. That's
fast
good.
out of the gate, and then almost non-existent for the last few months, right? So things are starting to pick up now, which is great, right? So it's nice to see.
Good. But you're enjoying it overall, the real estate?
I do. I love it. Yeah, I landed at home base with Deerbrook.
Okay.
Kelly and Jen are fantastic women, and they've done very, very well with that brokerage, and they've got a lot of firepower in their company. So it only made sense to align myself with a company that's locally owned, locally operated, awesome. and it has all the right roots and all the right power to help me become a better realtor, a better person, just a lot of things. And it's between the magazines and real estate, it all kind of intertwines in some way, shape, or form. But it's been pretty fun.
Awesome, good. So tell me a little bit about your history. Not everybody knows who you are, but you started the Drive magazine a long time ago.
Oh yeah, so. We printed on a tablet, like actual rock tablet. That's how long ago we did it. Chisel and a hammer. No, we didn't start the Drive.
Oh.
So Kevin Kavanaugh, who was Kevin was a photographer back in his late 90s. He had a vision to create a magazine that was into the arts and visually sexy and something different, black and white. As an artist, he had a hard time trying to find sales, and was was having a struggle trying to get sales because he was an artist and didn't have the people skills to do what we do, right?
Yep.
So I had run into him long and short in late 99, early 2000s, and he said, I want to sell the Drive. And I'm like, yeah, I don't have the money at the time. I was 22, 23, and ran into him again. He said, oh, listen, I'll sell it to you for $10K. I said, you got yourself a deal, right? So we bought it in 2000, and I had it for 18 years, and it was very successful. It has peaks and valleys like any business. We had a lot of fun, met a lot of great people, a lot of celebrities, a lot of great local businesses, including your brother. I mean, he was one of our early covers back in the day.
Sure.
Props to Gino. But it was one of those things where life just threw you a curveball because it wasn't my path that I wanted. Like, I came from Sarnia to Windsor to become a police officer.
Oh, really?
Probably a good thing they didn't give me a sidearm. I'm just kidding. But the career path of becoming into the publishing market was basically just being in the right place at the right time.
Sure.
And no looking back, it's been 25 years now, in total.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
The magazine's come a long way too.
Thank you.
It's been. I love it. I mean, I advertise it in every issue for the last little while now. Did the cover as well, but I mean, it's beautiful. I think it's the nicest magazine out there.
Thank you. We pride ourselves on the quality, right? And that's our biggest thing, because if you're paying for a premium, you should get a premium product.
Agreed.
Right? Not something that's printed on, flabby kind of see-through tissue paper, if you will, that just feels like if you rip it or if you turn the page too hard, you're going to rip the page, right? So it's quality, it's the printing style that we do, it's called sheet fed, which is a very slow process in comparison to a heat set web. So it takes time to actually, bring the paper in, bring it back out, bring it back in, and it's, you get what you pay for, right? Yep. It's the Ferrari of magazines in our local economy.
For sure.
Hands down. There's no question.
Sure.
Not just because, I'm involved with it, but when you compare the content, the photography, the effort that goes in behind everything that we do, there's no competition.
Yeah. No, you guys are great.
Thank you.
So just curious, because obviously we've kind of started, I don't know if we're in a recession or not, but things have slowed down after the last 12 months because the interest rates have spiked as much as they have. Mm-hmm. What are you seeing the slowdown in the magazine? Are you seeing business owners say, oh, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to extend my. No.
It's
great.
It's crazy because when we'll back up your question for a sec. So when I sold the business in 2018, I had come over to basically run the show, and it didn't work out that way, and things didn't work out. So there was a time where I had to step away from something that I loved because it was just the right thing for me mentally to kind of just push back and say, okay, this isn't the way that I wanted to see what we had built kind of stick handle.
Sure.
And unfortunately that didn't work. It worked out in my favor. It didn't work out for the others that were involved at the time because the economy kind of, COVID had happened and everybody just didn't know what to expect, right? So when I got called from Paul, he asked me to come back and said, I'll make you a partner and I'll let you run the show. And I'm like,
Paul St. Pierre, right?
Yeah, Paul St. Pierre is my...
Landscape Effects?
Yeah, Landscape Effects, amongst other things, a
Yeah,
golf
lots
course.
of
Yeah,
things.
he's got a lot of hands in the cookie jars of a
yeah.
lot of different companies. And he's highly successful.
It's amazing.
You can't take that away from him, right?
No.
So I knew that when I sold it to him, that it would be to the right person for the right reasons. And I knew that he was able to take that dream that we had and finally push it over that threshold where I was just kind of pigeonholed for quite some time, right? So coming back in just at the end of COVID, the restrictions had kind of eased up a little bit, and people were starting to, get out and do stuff again, and we had record numbers. It was crazy when you think that people. It was almost like that celebration of finally, we're back out into real life again.
Yeah.
And you can go to a hockey game, you can go to a basketball game, you can cross the border, you can do this, you can do that. So people were living normal.
I'm seeing that here too. People are traveling at
big time,
crazy levels.
Yeah, and when you think that the reverse part of it, where people would kind of hold off because maybe during COVID their sales weren't as great as they were hoping because people weren't coming in and coming through the store because they couldn't, or you had to stand 6 feet apart from everybody with these stickers on the floor. It was crazy, right? Complete opposite. So what I've seen is continued growth, which is unbelievable. So it allowed us not only to publish the drive as frequently as we have, as many pages as we have. It's been a pretty solid 76 page to an 80 page magazine almost every issue, but it also allowed us to create another manufacturing magazine called We Manufacture, which caters to the tool and die sector, to the manufacturing sector, to the innovation sector, to construction. And you drive past all these places in Oldcastle and down Pattullo Road, or out in Leamington, and you see these massive factories. We have no idea what they do, right? You drive past Omega Tool. They got 30 buildings in Oldcastle. What do they do? Well, let me tell that story, right? And that just it took off.
That's great.
And then the women's magazine that we just launched called WOW, Women of Windsor Essex, that just surpassed the drive-in sales in its first issue.
No way.
Wow, that's incredible.
Isn't that wild?
Wow.
No pun intended, right? See, and everybody does it. Wow. See, and the key is let us wow you, right?
Yeah.
And it was phenomenal to watch. I knew it would be, popular with the audience, but not as fast as it took off.
Wow.
And when we started marketing it online, just on social media, that we're coming up with this idea, it was like people were calling us. And when you look at who our advertisers are on the drive and who our advertisers in We Manufacture and who's advertising in WOW, there's only a few companies that are doing both. So the market share that we have locally is crazy, and there's no other company that can touch this. And now we have a vehicle for any specific type of company to market in. Right? You have a direct audience, whether your audience is predominantly female and you cater strictly to females, or you're a male and you cater to men or women or both, or you're again a manufacturing sector, right? So
makes a lot of sense.
And it's great. And Paul and I had a conversation with the publisher of Our Detroit, which is the big magazine in Metro Detroit. His name's John Bellardo. We went over to Birmingham to Churchill's and had a cigar and a brandy, and we're just talking shop talk, and he gave us some great ideas.
Really?
Yeah. And this I had no idea how strong of an influencer that man is. I thought it was a few magazines in Detroit. He's across the continental U.S. with like 143 different magazines and newspapers.
Incredible.
Like he's a media mogul. And he was saying, don't do this, and this is what I would suggest you guys do. So we took his advice, and here we are.
Amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Guys, that's great.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
For sure.
Why don't we talk about? I'm really curious about what we're seeing today as far as the current state of the real estate market in Windsor specifically. I know it's been a big transition. We've seen a lot of slowdowns, but I'm hearing from other realtors that things are starting to pick up. What are you seeing out there over the last few months?
So things are stabilizing, which is great.
But the rates.
Right. The rates are stabilizing, but the market's stabilizing. So, a year and a half to 2 years ago, the demand was so high because the inventory was so low. That's what drove the prices.
That was the reason for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because if you had 110 houses on the market for sale,
Sure.
well, you could basically put whatever price you wanted to, and you had a lineup of people with open checkbooks that were
Sure.
interested in coming in, and it was almost like you didn't need a realtor at the time, right? Because the demand was so high that people were willing to pay $300,000 over, which is, I mean, still to this day blows my mind, right? So now that the rates have kind of balanced out a little bit, yes, they're a little bit higher, but we got spoiled at the 1.95%, right?
Yep.
And that was something that we haven't seen, like as a as a homeowner or in quite some time. I think my first mortgage was 4.25 back in the day. So I mean, we're not.
Which is still pretty good.
It is. It's great, but we got spoiled, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at the interest rates now and where they're at and how they're kind of balancing off, it makes things easier for a first time buyer to find a home at a reasonable price, right?
Sure.
So now at the 12th hour, when everybody kind of hit that panic switch that they were going to, try to dump their house and sell their house or find a house, the inventory went through the roof, right? So it exposed a lot of new properties, a lot of new opportunities, and it brought that price down to a somewhat of a level playing field. Yes, our housing market has gone up. It happens everywhere. I mean, my dad bought his house for $100,000 and sold it for $4.
That's it.
15 years later. So
That's
I
what
mean,
real estate does over time, right?
Yeah, 100%.
All assets go
Yeah.
up in price. It's just the dollar's deteriorating as well.
exactly.
It's a combination.
Yeah, so it's not like I paid $330 for my house 12 years ago, and now it's worth who knows, but I'm sure it's okay. But it was one of those things where you watched it kind of unfold, right? And it was kind of a scary situation especially for first time buyers, because my daughter, who's 25 years old, was basically upset because she was almost worried that she wouldn't be able to to get a mortgage of $500,000, $600,000, which is where the prices were for a starter home.
Of course.
Right? Now that's come down, so now there's more opportunity. You're seeing more affordable housing, coming up, where houses that normally would have gone for $500 2 years ago are now balancing out at like $350. So it's making it
So you're
easier.
seeing the first time buyer actually come into this market right now?
Yeah, I think we're seeing I think that would be more of a mortgage guy question. That I would say that it's getting easier for
Of course.
dual income. Single income might be a little bit hard,
Very hard.
depending if they have a huge down payment. Which as a 25-year-old kid, I'm speaking again on my daughter's behalf, but she built up a little bit of a nest egg, but is 25, 30K going to be enough to put down when you're looking at a mortgage payment of $2,500 a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it's still big numbers out there. I mean,
They're
it's
big
still
numbers.
costly.
yeah, and you look at everything else that goes in. You've got your mortgage insurance. You've got your your expenses for living. You have your heating and cooling and hydro and all the
Never ends.
utilities, right? and those haven't gone down.
No.
So you tack on everything. I mean, that's a big ticket item, which leaves most people either very close to living paycheck to paycheck, depending on what they earn,
Sure.
or having a little tiny bit of a surplus at the end of the month,
Yeah.
that they can maybe go out for dinner, do something
Sure.
cool, right? So I think it's going to stabilize even more,
Sure.
And from what I heard through the grapevine, that interest rates are going to drop again a little bit.
Yeah, I've been hearing that a lot as well.
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
Well, they're probably going to have no choice, right? If the economy doesn't rebound as quickly as they hope, I mean, I think they're going to have to stimulate a little more, right?
Well, you don't want to see a crash.
Well, that's just it.
Right? You're not going to see all these couples coming in just going, sorry, I can't
And
afford
that's
it.
where we were headed.
100% we were.
I mean, the Bank of Canada had no choice but to pause.
Well, think of the repercussions of what that would do if that were the case. Not only just for the housing market, but for the economy, local and provincial, and
Right.
across Canada and the globe. Right?
Disastrous.
It would be
Yeah.
a mess, because we're not the only people that it's affecting, right? So it was a scary kind of
Yeah.
what if.
And now the U.S. is in that same situation. They did raise again just this week. Another
Where are they?
point. I think they're up to 5% now.
Wow.
Very similar to Canada.
Yep.
But the problem is, by raising the rates as quickly as they did, you're starting to see some bank failures in the U.S.
Mhm.
And people are starting to panic.
Mhm.
So there's rumors that they're going to pause in June. And we'll see. My guess is at some point they're going to reduce rates as well. And
What was it? Was it 2007, 2008 when they had that huge crash
Yep.
across the U.S. when
Yeah.
it was just, you drive down a neighborhood, it was like foreclosure, for sale,
Right.
foreclosure.
And same reason. The
Yeah.
rates went up really quick in a very short period of time, and they went to 5%, and the banks couldn't handle it, people couldn't handle it, and they had no choice. But what did they do since then? They brought it down to 1%, and kept it flat for a decade. And
I remember going through Detroit with a realtor from Alexander Realty. It was the two young guys that came into the city 13 years ago when everybody was running out of Detroit with their asses on fire, and it was like liquidation.
Yeah.
And we went for a tour just to look at some of the properties that were available for Canadian investors to come over and basically to take advantage of these prices, right? So we're driving through downtown Detroit, like really like right the core. When you come out of the tunnel, like that area between Woodward and you know the other side of Jefferson, but crazy what he was telling me what you know a 15-story building was going for, or what it sold for.
$5,000.
I mean, you could buy a house. You could have bought a house in Detroit for $7,000 Canadian.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably didn't have any neighbors, but but
you always look back. You're like, why wasn't I buying during that time?
Think about that,
Yeah,
right?
I know.
Why was that's opportunity?
Even if you sold it for $100,000.
But it did come across your mind. Like you would.
It did.
You know what I mean? But we never pulled the trigger.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's the thing. You have to make that move. You gotta,
Exactly.
Unless you're there to keep an eye on it.
that's the problem.
Unless
We're
you're
not
crossing
there,
over
right?
every other day just to make sure your house is still there and nobody's looting it or
Right. And I don't think people are looking at this market today as an opportunity like anywhere near like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what are we down 20% from the highs? So, but could we see those opportunities? I mean, could we see a housing crisis like 2008 occur here in Canada? I mean,
anything's possible, right? As much as we don't want to, anything is possible.
anything is possible.
Yeah.
I agree. But I think they're going to do anything in their power to prevent it, right? And
I would hope so.
you would hope so.
Yeah, because I mean, it would be just an absolute mess.
I know.
An absolute mess. You know, and we go back to, you know, just affordable housing and looking at options to bring in, you know, ADUs, alternative dwelling units, where now if you own a home in Tecumseh and you've got X amount of property in your backyard, now you're able to build an extra small house for your in-laws, for your family, or as a rental income, right? And there's companies out there. A buddy of mine owns a company called Renew Home Solutions, and he's got a great concept where he's basically building. It looks like a glorified garage because you basically pull into a car and a half garage, but it's upstairs that he turned into a main floor, open concept, 1,000 square foot, you know, room essentially with a partition for your bedroom and stuff like that. But it's your square footage, but it's not just the floor square footage; it's the cubic square footage. So coming up with, you know, being able to put something like the size of this studio, if you were to put like a Murphy bed in there, or that hutch folded out to become a bed and a desk and or a coffee table or something. And you've seen these things on social media where these European companies are building these IKEA-like furniture, but it's like a transformer.
Yeah.
It's like a transformer that folds into a table and a bed.
Smart.
Yeah.
That's where we're headed for sure. I agree.
100%.
Yeah.
Right? And again, it's an opportunity for families who can't afford, you know, buying a $500,000 house. Now you've got a house that could be $225,000, $250,000.
You see families getting together and buying one home. I know
All the time. All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More so now.
Yeah, a lot of multicultural families
Yeah,
do
exactly.
that.
But that's always been happening.
Yeah.
Go back, like my parents' that's what they did. They came
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
They had 5 families living in one house.
I remember
It's much smaller than the houses today.
big time.
Yeah.
I mean,
I remember growing up. We had Portuguese neighbors, and there were 3 couples, and I think there were 2 to 3 kids per couple. So imagine, you know, you've got 6 kids to 7 kids, plus 6 adults. One stayed in the basement, one stayed in the main floor, and one stayed upstairs, right? And I remember going over there because 2 of the kids I was in, you know, grade school with, and you know, it was like organized chaos.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, I got my brother, myself, my mom, and my dad, and it's like everybody has their own little spot.
Yeah.
It was like, and everybody knew what was going
I
on.
bet you there's an element of fun to that too, though.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
grew up in a family where there was a large, like I think there were 7 of us. But I mean, I think you have that element of there's more, you know what I mean, where you're always by yourself in a house.
Yep.
It could be quiet and boring. If you've got action going on, I mean,
You
people
can-
like that.
Well,
You're
you got-
going to see people renting out their basements more so than ever.
Well,
You know what I mean? Then you see just you know, you got higher interest rate now. You got to somehow come up with.
I live out in Stony Point. I bought the house because it was quiet. It was away from the city. At the time, I needed to kind of break away from the monotony of everyday life in Windsor and Walkerville at the time where I lived, and then into Tecumseh. And it was one of those moves that I didn't really want to live that far east, because I drive, no pun intended, into the city almost daily. So there was a lot of commuting back and forth. I mean, when I went home, I stayed home. Looking back at it, best decision I could have made, because it's almost like summer, spring, and fall. It's like a vacation. I live on the lake, and it's beautiful.
That's
Winter,
nice.
you go a little crazy, like Jack Nicholson from The Shining. But it's there, right? But my house has a detached garage with a loft, a 425 square foot loft above the actual car and a half garage, and it's a massive room. It's one big room. I've got my drum set in there. I've got my workout stuff. I've got the TV. Got all my records for Sam Sunday Morning Over Easy Album of the Day. Little plug there, and my desk and my computer stuff for work. And it's my man cave. And that's awesome. That's what sold me the house, because when I went into the house, it was like this guy had set up like a music studio. I'm like, like this is And then don't mind the water behind I like this, right? This is my kind of go away.
For sure.
But I could easily take that space, get rid of the garage door. There's hydro, there's gas, there's a 3-piece bathroom on the main floor, and I could turn that into an ADU, right? And I knew if I put up some cabinetry here, and it's got 4 windows on either, or 2 windows on either side. So there's 4 windows on the main and 2 in the front and back, south and north. I could turn that into a living room / kitchenette, small kitchen, right? You've got everything. Throw a little living room down there, turn the upstairs into a massive bedroom, and rent it out for $50-$100 all day long.
Exactly.
And somebody would pay.
Yeah, 100%.
Because
people need affordable rent. Right now, it's
crazy.
Look, a 3-bedroom home, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. What does that go? 2,500?
Oh, more.
3,000.
Oh man, So a friend of mine had
That's crazy. That's Toronto prices.
But again, you're so my brother, God rest his soul, he just passed away a couple months ago. So I had him into a new building on Tecumseh Road, which was called the Townsend, which is across from Frank Brewery. Mm-hmm. Beautiful building.
Okay, yeah.
Beautiful building, little 3 or 4 story building. Open concept, kind of New York style, lofty, industrial look. It was maybe at best 1,100 square feet, 1 bedroom, bathroom and a half, and that was 1,800 plus.
Yeah,
1,800. So he would have been dancing somewhere around 2,300 between the parking, hydro, gas, everything else, the insurance that they wanted him to carry on this place. But again, that's a lot of money.
That is a lot.
Yeah, as a rental,
if you're making $50K a year, your whole income's going to rent.
Dude, you're working to
Just
live.
To pay your rent.
Exactly.
You're working to live.
You can't even eat yet.
Well, yeah. Yeah. You're down at the.
It's tough.
It's scary.
You're working for shelter.
It is
That's
scary.
it.
Things are just keep getting higher and higher.
Yeah.
Are the rates on rental coming down or not really?
I don't see it.
I don't think so. Yeah.
No, I don't see it. I had a house listed out in Bell River that unfortunately didn't sell at the time because it was just the wrong time of the season, right? It was a smaller home, but it was updated. It was nicely put together, and it had a huge lot, 750 feet deep by 50 feet wide. So it was like a pencil, right? And my client, who's my friend, basically said, I don't want to have to rent it, because you hear all these stories of squatters and people not paying rent. I've heard stories of people squatting for a year. Mm-hmm. And just I could not fathom what that would be like now you're responsible to pay that on top of everything else. So it's scary, right, for some landlords. But he now has it up again for sale, but it's for sale or for lease. Mm-hmm. And for that house, I believe he's looking for 28. I might be wrong, 25 to 28. So somewhere in there for a 3-bedroom home, which is reasonable. Yeah. For a home. Yeah. You've got a detached garage, a small detached garage, or a workshop, and again the property. But if you're renting, you're not buying or renting the house because it's got a golf course in the backyard, right? It's again maintenance, but it's across the board. Like even the smaller cities, unless you know somebody who owns a basement apartment or it's a relative, you might luck out. Right. But
that makes sense.
Yeah. Realistically, you're dancing at pretty high numbers.
For sure.
Yeah, pretty high numbers.
Cool.
So, where is mainstream media today? I think people are hungry for the truth. I think just the ratings alone, mainstream media are taking a dive. It's an older crowd watching it. Is now people are starving for truth, and now podcasts, these formats are exploding. Why? Because why is Rogan have 10 times more followers than CNBC, CNN, Fox combined?
It's because he doesn't have a watchdog.
Yeah.
Sitting at
Yeah.
the top, sitting at the
What
top
you
floor
can say and
with
what
a
you
dump
can't
button,
say.
right? Like seriously,
Exactly.
you say something that's offside, or you say something that's truthful, but shouldn't probably be told because now it's going to create, a shitstorm
Yeah.
with whether it's an advertiser or a marketer who's advertising on the program or whatever it happens to be, and you hit that little red button, come see me when you're off the air. And again, that happened with Tucker Carlson, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Who we don't know if he's got fired or.
Well, they reported he got fired.
Yeah.
That's how it was
Yeah.
reported for sure.
Yeah.
In the mainstream.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Lies.
Yeah.
Fake news.
He
But
walked
now
out.
you have him already, first week off work, already getting $100 million offer, and that's just the
big dollars.
Yeah.
I think that's just the beginning.
Yeah, and you were saying off camera before we started that you think that this could be even higher.
I think
Oh,
it's gonna
yeah.
be much higher.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. Like
I know.
Yeah, so they did him a favor.
Yeah.
Now he
Yeah.
can say what he wants without.
Guy shows up at
Sure.
work, bow tie's gone, a total
Right.
attitude
Yeah.
like Howard
Yeah.
Stern.
That would be amazing.
Oh, I've been waiting to say
Imagine
this
that.
for 30 years.
Smoking darts.
Oh yeah, bottle of Jack, eh?
It's going to be way more
Fantastic.
interesting. He's going to be even.
I
He's
think
just
so
going to
too.
be exactly just like you said. There's no filter. There's no censorship. Tucker, that show, I think everybody's going to be.
It's gonna be big.
It's going to be huge.
The internet's the most powerful tool in the universe,
by
right?
far,
And everybody has it. So
Yeah.
even third
That's all
world
they do all
countries,
day.
even third world countries have it. So
Yeah,
to
exactly.
access something like that now, right, as opposed to having cable television or satellite,
Right.
You got
Everybody
Wi-Fi.
has access.
You can watch it on your phone,
Right.
right? You just amplified your audience by billions of people.
And it's a simple formula. If you're just genuine and just speak your mind without, you know what I mean, without an agenda, people are gravitating to that.
Yeah.
Because they can't find it on
It's hard to
mainstream
find it
media,
yeah.
right?
That's why you
Like,
see the viewership.
here's a question I always ask people. And name me one journalist who's committed to telling the truth in mainstream media. Name one.
I mean, I think Tucker was one of them.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but. I
But
mean,
now he's not part of that.
Can we throw it back just to show my age? I'm gonna go Bill Bond's final answer.
Good choice.
Not only did he tell the truth, he used to punch people out.
That guy was a legend.
Oh yeah,
He was a legend.
Somebody tried to grab his toupee in downtown Windsor. He turned
No
around,
way.
knocked him out. Yeah,
No way.
honestly,
Is that a true
That's
story?
a true story. Right on Chatham Street. Somebody went to grab his toupee, turned around, gave him one. Yeah,
Oh my
they made a
God.
shot. They made a shot called the Bill Bonds.
Oh,
It's-
wow.
it's-
Oh, I remember the shot.
It was like creamy something and
I
a
remember that.
butterscotch ripple was his
Yeah.
Oh
drink.
my God.
And he
remember.
used to come over here and get shit canned all the time because he could, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And somebody tried to grab his toupee and he knocked him out.
That
Yeah.
toupee was ridiculous.
You know what I heard? Even back in the day, someone told me they seen him at a restaurant in Detroit, and he was wearing a cape. Like this guy was
Really?
Like,
well, because he
Sir,
was like,
Mel Farr.
I could see him wearing a fur coat for sure.
Oh, for
yeah,
sure,
he was
big
like,
Pippin.
he was a superstar
He
back
was.
then,
He was big
man.
time.
He was big time. That's
But that was-
Anchorman.
But those were the that's
Yeah,
who they based that
yeah,
character on.
yeah,
exactly.
Oh, yeah, man. Ron
Yeah.
Burgundy's character was based
Was it
on
really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's pretty
But
cool.
you go back to that was a completely different time, right? You look at who the big network, who owns the big networks, right? CNN is owned by Ted Turner. I think he still owns it, right?
yeah.
But CBS, Viacom, or some of the bigger media outlets that
All major corporations.
Well,
But
that
they-
was done by Bill Clinton. When Bill Clinton was in office, there was tons of media companies, and he made it where
Merged
only
together.
there's only 6 now.
Yeah.
So, and we know why, right? For
course.
control, right? And that's what's happened. And now people finally are fed up with it and realize, hey, you know what? We're not getting reality here from mainstream media. So now you have all these people that left mainstream media and done podcasts and these other shows. They're ultra successful, making millions of dollars only because they're spitting truth. It's not like it's a revelation they
And
discovered.
people aren't watching TV anymore. Let's
Yeah,
be honest.
exactly.
I think people.
I'm one of them.
I haven't turned the TV on. I mean,
Exactly. Who watches TV? Nobody.
Nobody. And I mean, obviously people watch Leaf games and playoffs
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah,
like that.
for sure.
Sports,
it's painful. But
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's been brutal.
Yeah.
But,
I know.
yeah, I mean, so people's attention is on their phone
Mhm.
or on their computer,
Right.
and they're on social media for
Right.
hours a day,
Mhm.
5
Yeah.
to 10 hours a day. I mean, that's I think the average.
Yep.
Um,
Screen time.
so that's where people need to be. and that's why people are doing podcasts and people are.
But look at the production costs. You've knocked it down by probably 90% compared to
So it's
you
more
know something
affordable.
like a CBC studio on Riverside Drive. You got,
Exactly.
you know, you need the satellites, you
You're
need
right.
this, you need that. All you need is internet and the equipment,
Yeah.
great
Right.
lighting, great cameras,
You're right.
good company.
Newmark Media, and that's
There-
it. You're all
there
set.
we
You
go.
can do a podcast.
And we're sold.
It's
Yeah,
true.
exactly.
It's
You're
way
ready
more
to go.
affordable to do. To
It's
fun.
advertise.
It's more
It
fun.
is more fun.
But you know what? Too, it's the valuable information. Like with this podcast, we were discussing earlier. Gold has reached its 52-week high, and same with silver.
All-time high for gold.
Yeah,
What's it
all-time
at an
high.
ounce now?
Just over 2,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
You won't
US.
find a peep.
It's almost
On
3,000.
mainstream
Hit
media.
3,000 Canadian recently.
Yeah, you won't find a peep on mainstream media. You could search it all you want. Why are they not telling you that?
Oh, there's a lot of things on mainstream media they don't tell you.
Yeah.
You know,
So like,
They can't. They can't. I mean,
yeah,
they can't tell. They're not allowed
they,
to tell
they,
the
they
truth.
should though, right?
Of course they should.
You know, this
Absolutely.
this is one of them. You know, to me, because it's near and dear to my heart, because I lost my brother to an overdose, and the you know the real to me the real pandemic is what's going on in, not only in our own city but across the world, and how you know big this opioid crisis really is.
1,000%.
Right, and
Yeah.
the sad part is, I mean, I lost him to a fentanyl overdose. I've been talking about it for a long time, and
Yeah,
it sucks.
I didn't know that. Sorry.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's been tough, right? And
Yeah.
he was 44 years old, and he was on a great path, and he was clean for a long time, and he thought he could use what he used before, and it took his life.
Wow.
But the cops were telling me when we were in the apartment that was the 10th overdose that week.
Wow.
The next week, the following week, there were 11, ages 24 to 55. I heard. So there's 21
You
people
never hear anything about that.
that tell those numbers, right? And again, it's as the media.
And how is fentanyl still accessible? Is my question.
Because it comes from China. You know, I've got
Yeah.
friends that are, you know, conspiracy theorists that think that the Chinese did this to basically wipe out the Western
Wow.
Hemisphere, right? Because they know how addictive it was,
Interesting.
right? Touche. Maybe it is. Who
You
knows,
get
right?
through the border, right? The U.S. border. That's how China met from Mexico to here, and that's why the border is wide open in the U.S.
But doctors are still prescribing it, or no?
They, from what I understand, yes, because it's
Yeah.
a controlled patch. It's finding those patches where these addicts are basically scraping call it like the crystals out of the patch, and that's the drug, right?
Yeah.
And that's the powerful potency
Gotcha.
portion of that, right?
Sure.
You know, I had a chance to talk with Counselor Augustino about you know what he was doing downtown and how he was going to kind of clean up the mess that it's become, right? And now you know I look at addicts a little bit differently because you can't tell me one person who's woke up thinking, you know what, today I want to be an addict, right? Somewhere in their lifetime, whether it was teenagehood, 20s, 30s, 40s, you know, and some are even older, that they had a job, they had a family, they may have been married, they may have kids, right? And it just that the addiction took over. And you know, what are we going to do differently in our downtown court to kind of you know help that? And you know, he had a suggestion about you know basically having a Canadian pharmacy company find a safe way to manipulate that drug where it wouldn't, if the potency wasn't as strong.
Lower dosage.
Lower dosage, you know, because you can't take an addict strictly off because you could kill him.
Yeah,
right?
they're not
And-
going to stop using drugs.
Yeah, but so if you're a heroin addict and you're, you know, poking needles in your arm or your foot or wherever, and you just stop cold turkey,
Yeah.
your body could go into withdrawals, into shock.
It will,
You
yeah.
could die,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So by weaning people off of this
a pretty
opioid
good idea,
crisis,
yeah.
right? There's a way to basically to not to drag it out, but to eventually, just like smoking, you know,
Exactly.
you take the patch for smoking, or you chew a gum for smoking. You're not lighting up every 15 minutes with a dart. You're
Right.
now you've got your craving through a patch, and eventually that craving goes away, and you don't want it anymore. Well,
Right.
that's got to be the same way with what's going on, right? So again, it goes back to like the responsibility of mainstream media. Like where do you
You're right.
where do you find that?
It feels like they don't have any at this point.
Seriously, like
Well, because they're controlled by big
Of course.
pharma.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
they're the number
they're-
one.
They're the number
contributor
one
to their
to their
income,
exactly their
sales.
advertisers.
It's
Yeah.
all. look
And,
at CNN,
you
it's all
remind me of a
Pfizer.
story.
yeah, 100%. All the
Yeah.
commercials, yeah.
I mean, so you can't talk about certain things on those channels
Yeah.
because you lose your revenue and now you're out of business.
Mhm.
It's really that simple. I mean,
Yeah, and how our medical establishment is structured too. And you remind me of a story. I watched a guest on Joe Rogan, and he was a pharmaceutical sales guy, and he lost his brother to addiction, which he started this company motivated him to start this company. And he was like, he couldn't believe how so corrupt the medical establishment was. And like these opioids, like what's Hillbilly Cotton there? That was what's Hillbilly Cotton again? That's
Oxycontin?
Oxycontin,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That was like that was for people who had like stage 4 cancer
Well,
and like severe pain, and then they diluted
Used
it
it for
where if you
everything.
have a headache,
Yeah.
yeah, you could get it.
Yeah,
It's like-
they toned it down to a 5. They remember that I had like no surgery where I had a deviated septum, so
Yeah.
they gave me a bottle of perks. They
Yeah.
call them, right. They were little white ones that had TEC tech on it,
Okay.
right, and they were the low
Yeah.
dose.
Ah.
And I mean, those were the ones that really hooked
Oh, really?
people. Oh yeah, man. Like,
yeah,
I remember people. I was hearing stories of guys at Chrysler selling bottles and getting scripts because there were doctors in the city that didn't.
So what's the buzz? I mean, what? Because I always say no.
I
Because
always-
I'm
Yeah.
I have an addictive personality,
Yeah,
so I'm like,
exactly.
no thanks.
I'm the same way. I
So,
couldn't.
I mean,
do
I
it.
don't know what that.
I've taken them before
Yeah.
for pain, like after because I had no surgery, so I had this stand up here. It was awful.
Yeah.
It just
Numbs
just
you?
numbs you. Yeah, it's
Yeah, oh, for
but it's
sure.
not enjoyable because it almost gives you
Really?
a foggy feeling.
Yeah.
So I guess why? I mean, so what is the
Well, people who like
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 emotional pain?
no, what
No,
happens
they
is
wouldn't give it.
No,
for-
I
it
know.
happens to athletes. You get like a
Low
knee
knee.
No, but
surgery.
why would people like? It's addictive. I get that, but what's the buzz that people like? Like I know you smoke marijuana. It's
Giggly, you get
Yeah,
the,
there's-
the,
I
yeah.
get
laugh,
that. I get that.
go to
but-
sleep.
Right?
Right.
I mean,
But you like
what's-
say if
what's
you
the
have big
buzz
pain.
on OxyContin
Dude,
other than it just
Well,
numbs
here,
you?
let's go back to fentanyl.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I knew that things were starting to take the turn for the worst, my brother's girlfriend at the time was sending me videos of him in Sarnia, and it was awful to watch. And you become contorted like a friggin' Cirque du Soleil gymnast, and your body just becomes so relaxed. They call if you ever see somebody just sitting there doing this, like they're falling asleep and then they catch themselves.
Yeah.
The term for that is called the nods.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing what my brother went through, in person and on video, it blows my mind because you go back, to smoking a joint. Smoking a joint, you giggle, you laugh,
Right.
you're
Right.
having a good time, everything's cool, and you never see anybody get violent while
No.
smoking pot. Everybody's your best
Yeah.
friend.
Nobody's
you're
ever
hugging
died
everybody,
smoking pot.
And
either.
there's no chemicals in it.
Yeah, as
Yeah.
long as it's
Yeah.
long as it's regulated
Yeah,
or it's
sure.
homegrown or
course.
whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
But just that's a great question. Like where or how is that fun?
I
Right.
know. I never understood that.
I saw things where his neck was basically touching the toilet bowl while sitting on the toilet. And I'm like, any other day where he was upright, you're not going to, even if you wanted to try to force yourself to be that loose,
Right.
it's not going to happen. Your muscles are, but you just become so flaccid that it's just like,
Yeah, and I'm not a doctor, but once you go off there, like I heard the
Oh,
withdrawals,
I got
off
it.
of-
That's probably the main.
and then you have to have it
Yeah.
to
So
get
I see
back
what
to
you're
like.
saying.
so my brother was taking
Yeah.
Suboxone, which was it's a light form of, if memory serves me correctly, like almost like a not a methadone, kind of like a.
Yeah.
So it's a lower dose, but it's to
Right.
give your craving that you're okay, that you don't need to use anymore. It's kind of just to kind of balance you out, sort of thing,
Right.
right? But it's wild, man. Like it's crazy. And again, this
Yeah.
is what the mainstream media should be
Yeah.
reporting on.
And it's probably just going to get worse. I mean, as more people go through more
Hundreds
stress,
of-
more
100,000
financial
the-
difficulties,
Hundreds of
it's gonna
thousands of
get worse
people
and
die
worse.
every year
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
it, and it's not like that's not a
And
that's a
and
pandemic
marijuana was
right there.
illegal, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, go figure.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
they'll sell booze.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
cigarettes over everything.
Because what happens is instead of making medicine to like for cures, they just look at medicine like there's no focus on preventing it. There's
There's
just
zero focus.
Yeah,
Even during
exactly.
the whole COVID.
so
thing.
it's just they'll make pills. Oh, you'll cope with it. Take 2 a day. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but our medical establishment is corrupt, and
crazy.
then it's backed by our mainstream media. So
Yep.
it's insane.
So what we're
Yeah.
taking away today is we're going to start a media company.
Yeah, we should, and we call Elon. Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if you guys heard, but Paul just offered Tucker Carlson a contract.
That'd be fantastic.
Oh,
You did
God.
what? Oh yeah, the paper signed. He starts Monday.
I'm sure everyone has reached out to Tucker. I could
Oh.
imagine what his offers would be insane. He's probably just counting.
At this point, I don't think it's going
100 million,
It's not going to
too.
be about the money for him. I don't
Yeah.
think at this point.
No, he's
Oh,
not.
yeah.
And
It's
if
whether it's 100 million or 500.
I've read his book, that guy has no TV at home.
Yeah.
He fishes.
Yeah.
He's very like into wilderness.
Yeah.
Reads like
Where does
crazy.
he live? What state
Very
is he?
in Boston, like in a rural area. You know what I mean? He's very not what I thought. I was like shocked because this guy's been in media all his life.
Yeah.
You think he'd be in a penthouse in New York City?
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
This guy's complete opposite. He's,
Yeah,
he's from an LL
exactly.
Bean catalog.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
No, I was floored. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. He's like social media. He goes, I'm not bringing that into my house.
Yeah.
He goes, I don't want none of that.
Hey, he pulls out his
Yeah.
cell phone, he drops it, he picks it up, and he's like,
Yeah. Oh, God. It's crazy, man. And it leads, like, take for instance what's happening in Canada right now, just article that just came out. So the CRTC is considering banning Fox News from Canadian cable packages. First of all, why would they do that? Tucker's gone. Now you're
Is that
completely...
based on this new bill that passed? The
Yeah,
CLA?
I think that's linked to this Bill C-11.
but here's
I don't understand why Canadians are gravitating towards censorship. Where in the history in the world?
But I don't
censorship-
think they are.
yeah,
No, I know they're getting it shoved down their throat.
Did we vote on something recently?
But we should.
We
But
didn't have
should
any
be,
decision on
Yeah,
this.
we should. But there should be some outrage.
There's zero. Nobody even knows it happened. That's the problem.
again,
Exactly.
we're so Americanized. Windsor's so
Yeah,
Americanized.
100%.
I don't know how the
You
rest
go to
of
Moose
Canada
Jaw,
is.
Saskatchewan,
Yeah.
they don't give a shit about Fox News, right? Again,
Yeah.
but
That's a
we're
very good
Yes,
point.
Yeah,
that
but
is a
we're-
very
we're-
good point.
we're
We're
living on-
American.
right.
We're
Yeah,
based.
literally. Yeah.
So again, like the concert thing that I threw on, back in 2011, 12, and 13, the Great Canadian Beaver Fest, where we were bringing all
Oh
these
yeah,
big
yeah,
guys,
yeah,
remember that?
Remember that.
yeah.
And we were bringing A-list, like we had 3 Days
Yeah, that was
Grace,
amazing.
Puddle of Mud, the Cult,
Yeah.
right? And we thought for sure that, being, some of the Canadian bands that we had,
Yeah.
we thought like Honeymoon Suite, Platinum Blonde, Tom Cochrane,
Well, those are all
Honeymoon
great
Suite, like
bands.
old school 80s,
Yeah.
90s
Yeah.
bands, right? We thought for sure that we would get the American clientele, but it was the complete opposite, right? If we
People
would
coming
have
from all over Canada.
well, they didn't come because it rained
Oh,
most of
that's
the time,
right.
so
Oh,
it was
okay.
awful,
Forgot
right?
about that.
But it was
Yeah.
just, if we would have went heavier American bands, we probably would have did a little bit better.
Yeah.
But it's we're so used to, look at our cable television.
Yeah.
We have 2 Canadian televisions, or stations. We have CBC and we have CTV. right?
Yeah.
That's it. Everything
Yeah.
else is Channel 7.
People only watch it for the news.
And look at our
hockey
radio.
game.
We grew up on American
Oh,
radio
bro, right.
too. We
The Riff, you kidding?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Dave Hunter and Chuck the
Yeah,
Freak.
and then you start driving out in Canada, you start hearing Anne Murray. Never heard Anne Murray in my
100%.
life.
As soon,
Really?
as soon as you
Yeah.
as soon as you get past Dutton, which
No
is on
way.
just
Yeah.
before London, like the Riff, the 101 would basically go about a half an hour past Chatham, where you could still pick up the signal because it was that strong from Detroit, which is pretty wild. But then as you start getting into like London, because I used to travel and I was working for the construction company with STC. I used to go to Toronto at least once or twice a week, so I would drive all the time. And the station in London, FM 96 was the big station that was their kind of London's rock station and talk radio. They had a great radio show in the morning, but that was you can see the difference because when you're driving, from Windsor to Chatham, it's all American bands. As soon as you get from the outside of Chatham to London, you're hearing, Blue Rodeo. You'll never hear Blue Rodeo
Yeah.
in Windsor, right?
Yeah.
You'll hear
Exactly.
you'll
I didn't
hear-
know that. That's
yeah,
interesting.
but it's
yeah.
crazy, right? And again, it goes back to the whole depends on where you live. Like the CRTC can do whatever they want with the censorship. Okay, does it affect Sarnia? Does it affect Windsor? Maybe some a little bit lower in the states that are closer towards some of the other states like North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, all that kind of
Right.
stuff.
But
Right?
the scary part of that is what's next. I mean,
Yeah.
it's only passed a week ago, this bill.
Yeah,
I mean-
exactly. It just
I mean,
passed. Yeah.
What's going to be shut down going forward? as
Well,
far as-
they're claiming that it's not, but it may affect what you post on social media.
Well, it's already
Yeah.
happening,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Like somebody
We already seen it. Yeah.
they don't let your videos be seen,
No.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
Well, and they'll take them off pretty
or they'll
quick.
take it off quick. I mean,
Yeah.
all the people I follow, it's
Yeah.
a weekly thing. My video was taken down, my account shut down for
Yeah.
2
Shadow
weeks.
ban.
I'm banned
Facebook
for
jail.
then they're banned forever.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the people I used to follow have been banned forever.
I think COVID made a few people a little,
Yeah.
crazy because they became they became kind of contained in their home and they weren't getting out and getting fresh air, so they just kind of went a little bit loopy for a little bit.
I believe that.
You know, and again, it goes back to, you know, some people's posts and what they thought of this and what they thought of that and what they thought of the vaccine. And then it just kind of, it continues, right? You know, people, politics, Canadian politics, you say anything bad about the Prime Minister, you're clamped down, you're in Facebook jail for probably 2 weeks.
Which is so ridiculous.
100%, it's a freedom of speech, right?
Yeah.
Where did that go?
We're not threatening the guy.
We lost that. We don't
Yeah.
have that in Canada anymore.
Very little.
That's
Very little.
I mean, it's
We're
scary.
turning
It is
into
scary.
China, which
I know.
your prime minister gave you a little hint how he admired the Chinese,
Yeah,
president
he did.
there.
I know.
Yeah.
He pretty much told you. If you're
Yeah,
paying attention.
he gave you hints. So
He admires the leader.
we
of
got to
China.
get out of that. It's long overdue. And I'm not liberal. I'm not conservative. I call myself politically homeless because I lost faith in politics. I really don't. I think the people, we're going to save ourselves.
We have
When the
to.
people get
There
together,
has to be a
and that's
revolt.
why that's why they want this divide. They don't want us three getting together
You're right.
and
Hence
thinking
the
this.
15-minute cities.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It's true. But my old
Yeah.
man used to always say there's going to be a revolution.
There
Yeah.
has to be.
You know, there's going to be an overturn. There's going to be, you know, the military is one thing, but I mean, the amount of people that are outside of the military is greatly outnumbers that.
Yeah,
right?
we,
And-
we
and-
can't
And
lose.
if the people speak
Right.
and
Right.
stand up, dude, it could be.
We'll win.
History
and
history
we'll win
repeats itself.
very quickly.
Yeah.
If we did it in the masses. It has to be in the masses, right? I mean, we can't have
50 people show up with a great flag
Come on.
downtown.
I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen that in the
Right,
past.
seriously.
It doesn't work. I
Yeah.
mean, it's got to be. I mean, you're seeing what's happening in France right now. It's wild.
Insane.
Yeah.
And that's
wild.
not on mainstream media.
And-
You got to catch that on. Thank God for Elon who made Twitter. He went full free speech on Twitter, right?
Mhm.
And where you can get a little bit of this. That where else would you find this?
Unless,
Yeah,
unless you went there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Unless
you're
you
right.
actually go there.
I mean, now at least you're starting to see new websites pop up, like Rumble,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
You're seeing a lot more truth out there that doesn't get censored,
Mhm.
and that's where everybody's moving from YouTube to Rumble and other.
There's money to be made.
Yeah.
Twitter, Rumble.
We were
gonna
talking about
see
that
it.
earlier, starting a little company.
I'm
that's
serious, man.
Alternative news.
We're now
Exactly.
accepting applications. Please send them to dhunter@thedriveangrady.com.
There's big money to be made. They're giving it to you. Mainstream media is giving you the money as they follow this agenda, and they have censorship. And people are people are not stupid. They're catching on to this. And you could tell by
in
their
the
ratings.
masses. I've never seen it to this level.
So
before.
now there's
You have to pivot because if you don't change the way you think and you don't change
just
the way
walking
that you
into the
do
fire.
daily business,
Yeah.
you're dead in the water.
You're right.
yes.
You know, if I printed the exact same stories every issue in the drive,
Yeah.
And did the same feel, the same
Yeah.
look. Paul once said to me, St. Pierre said to me, he goes, if I did the same landscape job on every job that I did,
Exactly.
I'd be out of business.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you have to learn. You pivot, right? And that's, not going back to the drive, but this wow and we manufacture was that pivot point for us,
Yeah.
right? How we can keep doing what we're doing and it's going really well, but how do we kind of shift gears a little bit
Yep.
to make things
something
different, right? And it goes with mainstream. Like if mainstream doesn't click on, their days are numbered.
And they are done. I mean, look, CNN's numbers are so low right now.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I mean,
and how do you find those numbers out? Like, is it through like the?
Oh, they have
no,
ratings.
you can
oh,
find,
they've
you can
had
Google
like
that right now. It's
like at the
embarrassing.
time,
Like, it's
Tucker-
nobody watching.
Tucker
Really?
Carlson was the number
They're
one
irrelevant.
news show.
Yeah.
Ratings that he had like millions. I forget what it was, 3.5 million a night, and then the next guy would be like,
couple $100,000.
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Like
That's
so,
a big drop.
you
That's
know,
a huge drop.
yeah, exactly. So
He's the last of the Mohicans. Like,
yeah,
seriously.
exactly.
There's nobody left.
So now that Fox got rid of him, they just tanked.
Wow.
You
I
know what I
can
mean?
imagine.
Plus, he was on Dancing with the Stars, right? So
Yeah.
who's not going to listen to a guy who's on Dancing with the
I
Stars?
just
Why?
seen
Remember
that
He was,
too.
and he was awful.
I know.
He was awful.
He
It was
was
like
awful.
they took his left leg and put it onto his right. 1, 2, 3, 4. No. Yeah, I think he was the first guy that got turfed that
Yeah.
season.
Oh, for sure. He
Sorry.
should have never did that.
Sorry, Tucker, if you're
Yeah.
listening to the
Bad
show.
call.
Yeah.
Was he on Fox at the time?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's been on Fox
He's-
for a long time.
He's been around though. He's done CNN,
He's been all-
CM. He's been all
yeah.
around. Like his dad was in the media, his whole family.
Yeah.
But now he's And you know what?
And he was controlled. I mean, let's be
Yeah.
honest. He wasn't speaking like he is today.
No,
In the past,
that's
this is all new.
that's what makes him real. Is he's admitting his wrongs.
You're
So
right.
he was for the Iraq War, and he goes, I couldn't believe I was for the
Right.
Iraq. He goes, I was like he was brainwashed,
Mhm.
you know, and
we all are.
he admitted it on that podcast with those kids. It's called Full Send, the Nelk Boys. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that. It's a really popular podcast. Guy from London, Ontario, and now it's huge. The guy's like a mega star, and their podcast is like insane. And Tucker went on there. I think talk about the youth, and he was saying like how he admitted. He goes, I couldn't believe the Iraq War. I was for that, and when you do that, I think when you do that, people like that.
Well, you become real again.
Yeah,
We've all been wrong.
Yeah,
We've
we've
all-
all been. Yeah,
We've all been duped.
yeah,
Daily. I'm wrong daily.
Still
right?
happen.
And I can own it.
Of
If-
course,
if
you
I-
have to own it.
If I screw up, I'm the first one to say, hey, man, I'm sorry.
But let's learn from it.
100%,
100%.
And be able to change
Exactly.
and adapt.
Yep.
And,
It's not doing it again.
That's right.
You're-
Or learning from your
and
mistakes.
try not
Yeah.
to be fooled again. Right.
Uh,
That's
yeah.
a biggie too.
Yeah. So
But you can always be a puppet, but never a
Right.
puppeteer sometimes, right?
yeah, and
So true.
censorship. If you study history, censorship never came from the good guys. It was
No.
always the bad
course.
guys. So
Of
there
course.
is no good in censorship. Canada is a free country. United States is a free country.
Used to be.
Let's keep it that way. You know what I mean? That's the beauty of it.
I was like buying your first 2 Live Crew tape when you were
Yeah,
12 years old,
yeah,
right? Remember
exactly.
that?
Yeah.
They said the F word.
Yeah.
I remember buying, this is going off of censorship.
Yeah.
We were in a hockey tournament in London. I bought Slick Rick. Remember Slick Rick?
Yeah,
He had
I
that
rem-
song. He had that song called The Children's Story. You remember it if you heard it.
Okay.
But there was a song, and we were driving with one of the kids. His name was Matt. His dad was a little bit older at the time compared to other dads, right? So he was probably in his late 40s, whatever. But straight shooter. We drove in this great big Parisienne. It was like sitting on like a love seat, right? So there's Matt in the front seat, and Jeremy and I in the back seat. And we put this tape in the tape player, and it's just like F this, F that, crazy. And you could just hear like his hairs scritching down, and we're laughing because we
Yeah.
can't believe that this shit is on.
Yeah, yeah.
It's on tape. You never heard this before,
I
right? So
know.
censorship. It was. I mean, for a teenage kid, it turned me upside down.
Yeah.
You can say that?
Yeah. Well, it's still going on today. Who's that? What was that? WAP. WAP.
The rapper?
To help us out. Cardi B. And she had that song. I'm not gonna say what it means, but WAP. You know what I mean? It's just as bad as 2 Live Crew, right? And that was like number one. That song.
Her song was?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And the president of the United States was getting her to promote using her
And
as
he
a,
thought it was Mariah Carey. Hey, let's go to Mariah Carey's WAP song, trillion, billion, million, bazillion, zillion.
yeah.
Oh man,
But
what a world.
I know it's a crazy world out there.
So Dave, tell me, anything that you have coming up with anything? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we are going into year 4 of the Ride to Survive, which we started in 2003. We did it for 2003, 4, and 5, and it was a couple buddies, myself and Rob Pula, that started it. And it was to raise money for transition to betterness, and we rode across different parts of Ontario. So year 1 we did Windsor, Chatham, London, Grand Bend, Sarnia back to Windsor over 4 days. And then we kind of shelved it after 3 years because everybody got married and complacent and whatever. So in 2020, they asked us to bring it back. So they said, we're having a hard time with fundraising. Is there something you could do to help? And would you think about bringing back the Ride to Survive? I'm like, wow, I'm fatter and probably wouldn't hurt to get on a bike and exercise again. So sure. Long story short, so the last 3 years, 2020, 2021, 2022, collectively we raised almost $600,000 for T2B.
Wow, that's
Wow.
amazing.
Crazy.
That is amazing.
Like crazy.
I had no idea.
Yeah, man. The first 3 years that we did it, we raised $70,000 combined.
Oh,
So it was the right time, the right place.
Yes.
So this is now the Ride to Survive 4, being the number 4, the cause, for the cause, right?
Oh, cool.
So we've kind of coined it to kind of match the year. So that's coming up on Saturday, September the 16th, and you can go to t2b.ca
Okay.
to check out the website, and they're going to have the icons for the Ride to Survive. We're looking for riders, looking for sponsors, people that are willing to get involved in it. It's been
So what's the tour in this time? Is it same?
it's
similar?
the same tour that we did last time. So we basically leave from Wolfhead Distillery, and there's a couple different routes that we're taking. So we've got beginner riders. We have
I'll take that one.
It's 5K. You can do it all day long.
Okay.
Intermediate, and then we have everyday riders. Then we have pros, because there were some people that showed up on these carbon fiber super bikes that were doing 55K an hour on the back roads, like just flying past cars. I'm like, okay, that's cool. You'll be done in 15 minutes,
things
right?
Scare me.
They're crazy, and it's just effortless. Like, and you hear them go by, you get
Wow.
and so this year we're still doing it from Wolfhead. They were fantastic to deal with. The after party was awesome off the hook. We're doing it on Sundays, but now we've taken it back to do a Saturday so we can enjoy the after party, recoup from the ride after, so we have a date so not everybody's going back to work bull-legged.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun, and
Sounds like
it's easy to do. The routes are safe. They're on the Green Park Trail,
Awesome.
so there's no cars. You have very few cars except for a couple of the passings, or the intersections. Sorry, for the crossings.
Yep. And then all funds raised are going to T2B again?
Transition to betterness, yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah,
And then they do with what they please?
So there are programs that they house. They have the comfort cart. They have they're building some stuff at the hospitals for palliative care for people that are they've obviously their main focus for the charity was to redecorate the palliative care and oncology ward rooms, so that when people were passing away, that they didn't feel like they were sitting in a lime green
Right.
hospital room with a
Right.
pull sheet curtain
Sure.
that separated you from
Sure.
patient B beside you, right? So there was a little bit of privacy. There was a little bit more making everything feel like you were at home, right? So it was, your dying days and your last days,
Sure.
alive, you were surrounded by beauty.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
and they've done that, and they aligned themselves with Erie Shores Healthcare out in Leamington too to work and to bring in oncology and palliative care. I guess wing, if you will, and to have patients who from the county that were receiving chemo treatments, so they didn't have to come all the way to Windsor, so now they could go to that hospital too. So
Nice.
they're just, Amber and her team are phenomenal to deal with.
Great
They've,
cause.
Yeah, they've been
Yeah.
around for 20,
Amazing, yeah.
this will
They've
be their
raised
26,
so much money. It's
26 years.
insane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
They've done an amazing job.
crazy amounts of money, millions and millions, and tens of millions. Like it's been wild to watch what Doris and Tanya, the founders,
shout
had
out to
started.
them too, for sure.
Had started, right, because it was two women that had gone through the shit end of a cancer in their family, and they
Right.
felt that this shouldn't have happened that way, and how can I do something different to make it for somebody else so that their family members don't have to feel the same way we
What
did.
made you start this?
A buddy of mine lost his mom to cancer on Mother's Day back in 2000, and I think it was 2002 or the early part of 2003, and I watched Todd's mom, go from this vivacious and energetic woman to basically becoming a zombie-like skeleton, and it was sad to watch that transition, to watch her just basically diminish before she passed away, right? So I thought, if I can do something different, right? I had the time to do it. If I could do something different and it made an impact and helped, right? Feel good about myself. I get a little exercise in. And the first couple of years that we're doing 4 days, 700K. It was crazy.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, man. We did, if you look at the map of Ontario, like the leg of Ontario, we did, like I told you the first round. The second year, we drove to Grimsby, dropped in Grimsby, did Niagara on the lake, Niagara Falls, and then back down basically the arm of Lake Ontario to Lake Erie and back to Windsor. And the last year we did it in 2005, we drove up to Tobermory and paddled back to Windsor. Crazy. Couldn't do it now. I'd drop dead for sure. But it was like we met some great people along the way. But
For sure.
right,
Yeah.
and to watch what we've created, evolve into, which was then 2 people. Then, year 2 and 3 it was 10 people. Now it's 200 people, and it's just picking up speed, right?
That's fun.
And it's a lot of fun. It's all ages. It's open to anybody and everybody. So again, go to t2b.ca and check out the website and look for the Ride to
And
Survive.
what's the date again?
September the 16th.
Okay, perfect. Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. And
Thanks,
where
Mike.
else can people find you?
Oh man.
thedrivemagazine.com. We'll
Yep.
put it all in the bottom here. People
Okay.
can link. And also your real estate.
Yep. DaveHunterRealty.ca.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Easy to find.
Thanks, brother.
guys.
Thanks for coming today.
My
Really
pleasure.
appreciate
Thanks for
I
having
think
me.
we'll have Dave back again.
it. Of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be careful.
Thanks, brother.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate it.